Hello there.
Hello, hi.
Hi. Um, my name is Vlad. I'll be conducting your interview. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Um, so let's, I guess, start straight into it. Let me start the recording so we have, I guess, the recording.
hmm.
Um, okay. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the company and then you'll introduce yourself, okay?
Okay.
Um, okay, so my name is Vladislav Ivanov. Everybody basically calls me Vlad, which I know is kind of a thing that a lot of people do shorten the names.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I've been with Ness for about 6 or 7 years at this point, so I'm a pretty long-term employee here. That signifies that, like I enjoy working here, so it is pretty interesting over here. So there are two big divisions in Ness. There is engineering division, which is more focused on long-term tasks, and there are a lot of employees scattered around the world. So in USA, in Europe, there are two sites, or even three at this point. So Riga, Timisoara, and other places that I can't remember from top of my head. And there's also a part in India.
Hmm.
So the engineering team is mainly focused again on long-term tasks. We have deals with companies like Porsche and other banks that there are like many of, but basically a lot of fintech. Uh, Engineering is also spread across a lot of different things. There are like things in Parsons, basically does all the learning certificates and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and we have teams that helping develop those products.
Hmm.
um and like music industry, I think, even it basically like everything you think probably. um yeah. But
Hmm.
sorry, it's a little bit too early for me, so my brain doesn't like really work.
Okay.
So apologies if I like stutter a little bit.
No issue.
So yeah. Um, Engineering is very broad, a lot of teams, so a lot of people. So the teams like from 10 people to like 30 people in working on the projects. So it's pretty big. But then there is the practices part of the NES, which is more focused on financial technology companies. And from what I understand, the application of you is potentially going to practices. So I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Hmm.
So the practices are more focused and less teams. And when engineering have long-term tasks, practices mostly go into small teams and also more focused products, and even more of the times not existing projects. And what I mean by that is we start from scratch.
Hmm.
And the times of the projects are very small. So, as I said, engineering, like the projects span from 3 to 10 years, like
Hmm.
massive projects that needs massive teams.
Hmm.
Practices is the opposite. So we have short-term projects that are like 3 months to 6 months, maybe up a year. But the longest time I was on a project was around a year. So they are like a lot shorter.
Hmm.
So over the whole, 6 years here, I've been like on, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 at this point, different projects,
Hmm.
and it always is different set of technologies, even though, it's centered around AWS. So the practices teams are very focused on AWS, especially DevOps side.
Hmm.
Um, so we do a lot of migrations. So companies come to us and say like, hey, we want this product migrated from on-premises to AWS. Can
Hmm.
you help us? And then we have one or two individuals joining the client and do consultant work as in actually doing migrations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are lift and shift migrations, sometimes they are transformative. So we integrate AWS services in their daily lives and stuff like that. So, before they had a Docker, I don't know, a Kubernetes cluster, and on premises, we moved them to EKS.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's something like a batch job. So we move a set of their Docker batch jobs into something like ECS batch or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, moving databases into RDS. So more than not a lift and shift kind of thing, but actual full-on migration integrating lambdas, API gateways, and a bunch of different technologies like Kafka. So Kafka is MSK. Right now, streaming is becoming very popular and very useful. So a lot of things regarding Kafka and Flink,
Mm-hmm.
which is Kinesis data analytics in AWS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, in terms of practices, there is always time where we learn new technologies because you can't know them all, unfortunately, and sometimes it is a new discovery kind of thing. So we do POCs in our like local environments, in Nest side, and then move that experience to the client.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, yeah, any questions so far regarding that? Maybe like specific questions about the projects or something like that.
No, no question.
Okay.
Mm.
So then let's start with you, I guess. Well, let's continue with you. Can you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your experiences and
Mm-hmm. Okay.
technologies you worked on?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Omkar Kuchekar. I'm currently working with BNY Mellon as a senior DevOps engineer, and I'm working more over in the transition, or we can say transformation projects. So what we need normally, so we have Jira and Confluence where we get a business request, and we have 100 plus project already in pipeline. So what we need, there are the projects that are in the we can say on premises that we need to move to the AWS cloud. So with the AWS cloud, we have the small tasks that we are combining like whole project that divided into multiple subtasks and that can be migrated over period over the AWS. Then we also have the CI/CD implementation. So some project that they are not ready with the CI/CD, so we are using the GitLab CI/CD. With that GitLab CI/CD, we are moving all the project to make it automate for the deployment. So what we do, we have the dev, UAT, and prod environment. So frequently we need to make a changes. So we are using the GitLab and GitHub also, and we are creating the feature branches and working on that. If there is changes has been completed, we are pushing the request and then we are creating the pull request. So based on that, we are reviewing and then we are merging the code to the master branch, and that will be released to the production server. And we are also using some artifactory where our zip folder, or we can say project that has been deployed for the artifactory for the safer side, and the same has been deployed to the production servers. And as a part of the AWS, we are also using load balance and auto scaling where the we don't want to minimize the time for the users to access the particular application. We have some web applications, some are the Windows application also. So likewise we are working, and apart from that, for the monitoring we are using the Prometheus. So where in the Prometheus we are Prometheus and Mookshop, so we are receiving the frequent alert for the particular application. If there is an issue in the AWS or a particular server, then we are going to use and fix that server. So most of time we are receiving the error related to the space related issue, so we need to clear the RAM. And we are also creating the batch job, or we can say Ansible job, that will trigger once that threshold has been reached, and we are clearing that cache. So likewise we are working. And apart from that, as a part of the project, we are maintaining the documents. So we are creating the Confluence page for the particular project, and we are creating the each task for the particular project. So once project has been completed, we are adding each information for that particular Jira or that task, so that in future if anyone want to visit and check whatever changes has been happened for the particular project or particular check-in, then we can visit and we can work on that. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the technologies that you've been using. So you said Ansible. What kind of experience you have with Ansible? What have you did with it?
Mhm. So for the Ansible, what we done, so we have the Ansible tower is ready with us. So what we need to do, so recently we done one project where we have 100 plus servers are there. So what we need to do, we install OneDrive software on each application, each server. So we using the Ansible job. So create a script in the Ansible, and with that script, we need to make automate that once that server we are providing the host file. We have the list of server that we are providing, and once list is ready, then we are providing the package information for the license one drive. And once that has been ready, then over the weekdays we are implementing on the dev. So we are using the Ansible tower as a dashboard where we are running that particular job. So within a 10 to 15 minutes, all server will be ready with installation of that one drive. Then we need to check that particular installation has been okay or not. So for that, we randomly checking the servers and getting the sign off from the business that software has been installed on that server. So let us provide the sign off, and then we are slowly moving to the production. So production, we have the using the same setup, but host file will be changed based on the number of servers, and we just need to trigger that particular job that is over the weekend. And once installation has been complete, then same approach, we need to validate particular server, and then we need to connect with the business to provide the sign off. So likewise we are working.
Okay.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what kind of things have you deployed with Ansible, in terms like have you written any Ansible playbooks and what kind of issues you were having when writing those?
Yeah, so for writing the Ansible playbook, so most of the time we are writing the Ansible playbook only for installation of the different packages. So while writing we are and deploying, we are faced issue like version and access permission issue that we face frequently on the servers, as these are the dedicated servers and we don't have full control on that. So we need to connect with the other admin team. From that, we need to create one, we can say domain name, or we can say the user ID that have specific access to that particular job, and it only trigger that particular job to install, cause installation is not allowed by any user. So we are giving some additional permission for that particular user, and with that only we are going to install. So sometimes that permission might be revoked, or we have some certificate related issue. So in that case, we also need to communicate with a particular team, Windows team, and to get the access done and work on that implementation over the weekend.
Hmm.
Hmm.
What do you like about Ansible and what do you not like about Ansible?
Most like if we can say it minimize the task, like we can say if there is a 100 plus servers, or we can say it's limited, but if there more are server, then Ansible can be benefit for installation of the multiple software at the same time on the particular server. But problem is like if there are the 1000 plus servers are there, so what we need to do, we need to analyze the logs for each and every server. That will be the time consuming, and suppose if a single line contains the error, that need to be tracked and that need to fix on the same time, because if it is not fixed or it is not analyzed, then it will be time consuming later once that server is live and having some issue. So in that case, we need to roll back that particular changes. So likewise, we can say is a good tool if you focus on particular logs and errors, and we need to minimize that.
How do you do the rollbacks?
So we have the rollback script also written, like for the software that we already installation, we have the uninstallation script also ready, and that also deployed on along with that installation. Suppose after the installation, if you are taking time for analyzing like 100 plus servers, and if there is any issue, then we need to run Ansible job that will uninstall all the software. Sometimes we also face challenges like after the uninstallation, still that folder has been exist. So we need to create another folder, or we can say another job that will remove that particular folder from their servers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, understood. Let me let me quickly think on the next question because I want to talk a little bit about more Ansible.
Mhm.
Can you give me an example of what you have written for Ansible? Like exact things, examples.
Mhm. Okay, so in that Ansible playbook, what we run, we need to first provide the host name. So what we have the list of hosts. So we using the host group that has been added in the Ansible file, and after that we need to provide the package name. So we need to provide the what package we need to install, and there is a script and from where it will take. So what we have the bunch of software, and we have providing the location and giving the necessary permission for that particular software. And then we need to provide any instance or any additional information that is required to install prior to that software. Like suppose we need to provide additional permissions, so we need to name that and type and mention that one. So likewise we have the bunch of packages that can be distinguished in the Ansible file, and that we need to run.
Yeah, but can you give me a more concrete example on one of the things that you worked on, like a specific application name, like what issues you faced with it? Like let's focus like not on 100 servers, but one application, right, that you did work on. Can you tell me a little bit more about, what exactly you had to do? What kind of an application was it? More concrete examples
Hmm.
instead of like broad ones.
Okay, so we have the one application, we can say it's a Citrix based application. And what we need
Mm-hmm.
to do, we need to install the software, OneDrive software on the particular server. So what we need to do, we need to write the Ansible playbook script. And with that Ansible script, once that has been run, then it should install the OneDrive software on the particular server. So first of all, what we need to write the Ansible playbook. So in that Ansible playbook, we need to mention the host name. Host name will be the server name that we need to install. Then we need to install the name, we need to mention the name of that particular package, or we can say software. So suppose name will be the OneDrive software. Then we need to provide the package detail, like this software is present, but where we need to, from where we need to install. So we need to provide the path of that particular package. And then if there is additional, like we need to become the root and provide some additional permission, then that step that we need to add over there. And once that script has been ready, we need to provide that host name. Like suppose there are the multiple hosts, then we need to provide the host group in that particular file. And once that script has been ready, then from the Ansible dashboard, we have the job and templates are ready. So in the Ansible job, we need to mention that particular template, then particular that file. And once that has been ready, then we need to click, hit the job run for that particular template. And once job has been run, it will showing the dashboard like the playbook has been started to run, and it's checking the logs. It will check the server is up and running. Then first we need to shut down that particular server. Then we need to check that if there is other services are if running, then that need to be stopped. And then we need to start installation of that particular software. Once software installation has been started, it will show the progress of the logs on all log area. And once software installation has been completed, then it will do the validation, like that server installation has been completed, okay status will be there. And once status has been completed, it will finish and say that job has been completed. And after that, we need to log into that specific server from the server permission, like palm we are using. And we need to check that software has been installation. So OneDrive, for that we have the icon that is present on the system tray. And then in the C program files, we need to specify that OneDrive is present or not. With that, we need to check by logging into that OneDrive within our credential, and check that particular software has been installed. And likewise, we can implement similar for all other servers.
Okay, so it uh, from what I understand, that the
Hmm.
most of the things you're talking is Windows.
Hmm.
So you were running Ansible on Windows.
Hmm.
Okay. Do you have any experience with the Linux side of Ansible?
Linux side of Ansible is not, but I worked in the Linux also, like different commands has used.
Okay. Yeah, can you give me a little bit more about your experience with Linux if you uh, have one? What issues you faced?
uh,
What?
a- okay, so most of the time we are using the Windows system, and whatever application that is supported for the Windows. So as a part of the Linux, so whatever application that are present, like some
Hmm.
10 to 15 applications are there that is already
Hmm.
deployed. And what we need to do, so we need to sudo command, and we need to log into that particular Linux server. And we need to specify that if there is package installation, likewise. So we need to make the root user, then we need to use a sudo command for the installation of the package. We are using the yum install apt package installation. So with that we need to install. So likewise we also worked, but major part is
Hmm.
work on the Windows, and is
Okay.
minor, yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Hmm.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your experience with AWS. What kind of services have you used, and specifically any from the golden trio by, and gold by the golden trio I mean, EC2 RDS and PPC stuff. So can you tell me about all other experiences that you
Mhm. Okay, so for the transition from the on-premise to the AWS, so we are using the frequent AWS services like EC2, then RDS, then Route 53 we also used, then VPC is also used. So what we need to do first, while we migrating from on-premise to the AWS, so first we need to make the documentation like whatever service or project or we can say microservice that are present in the current project. Then we need to make some map like how things will work. So first, suppose we need to migrate particular web application like we can say .NET application on the web. So first we'll need the domain or we can say URL. So we need DNS first, then we need a routing mechanism. So we are using the Route 53. Then once user hit for that particular Route 53, it will map to the DNS name. So in that DNS, we have the name servers are there that we need to map in the Route 53. So once that it will come inside that VPC. So we can say VPC is a virtual, we can say private cloud where all instance and related information will be present. And once user come inside, then we have the multiple EC2 instance. So in that EC2 instance, we have currently 2 to 4 instance that is present. So what we do, so we need to do the load balancing stuff. So initially we deploy to the 2 to 4 instance, and once request will come, it will first go to the first instance whatever availability, and based on that it will expand based on the number of users are hit for the particular user. And likewise it will connect to the DB, we can say AWS RDS DB that we are using. And once DB has been connected, we are also fetching the data and showing that data to the end user. And we have some mobile users like they are using that particular website using the, so we have a mechanism like we are using the lambda where that particular image that we are converting that we need to convert in the mobile format. So previously that we are doing to the manual task, but in future we are change it to the make automate. Like suppose one user is hit and access some data, it will store using the AWS3, it will store some image file. Then image file will automatically convert to the mobile format, and that can be viewed to the end user. So for that we are using the AWS Lambda events. It will trigger and it will convert and it will show to the end user. Likewise we can
Mhm.
say.
Um, and what was that Lambda written with, and have you touched it yourself? Like, have you written something for those Lambdas, or it was other team responsibilities?
I didn't write a whole lambda, but I say whatever functionality that I know end to end, like in that lambda, what we need to do, we need to first take that particular event. So what we done, so in that we need to check the S3 bucket access. So for that we need IAM permission. So we are using the IAM role also to provide a specific permission to that S3 bucket. And in that lambda, we are asking to check that particular S3 bucket is updated with that new file, and then it will move or create or replicate that file for the mobile format. So likewise I work. And we are also using some SNS notification also. So anyway, if there is a changes in the S3 bucket, it will send a notification over the email.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about the scalable infrastructure that you have been part on? What kind of scaling? What services have you used? Any bad history with those? Like any problems you faced that you had to fix?
Okay, so we are using the auto scaling and load balancing. So what happens in the AWS? So we have the load balancer. So initially what we thought, the particular project is a little small and it not be accessed by the many users. So we are just using the 2 instances without any load balancing, without any additional services. So likewise, the service has been up and running and user started using. So we have the prod, dev and UAT environment is ready and up is running, and we have tested before moving into the production. But slowly user base has started increasing, and in that case we have don't have auto scaling or load balancer in place. So once we face issue like a server, particular server is capacity increased for the threshold one, and we are started receiving the alerts like the capacity has been increased, then we need to fix that particular server first. And parallelly we need to create the auto scaling group. So with that auto scaling group, it will expand horizontally, and we need to add additional instance. Like suppose we are facing like particular instance is a threshold like 80%, then we need to add one more instance likewise. And if that threshold has been minimized, like minimum it will less than the 20%, we can reduce the EC2 instance. That will we are using, and parallelly we are using the load balancer, so that as a particular resource is occupied from the particular user, or we can say bunch of user, then it will automatically migrate to the other other server. So likewise we are using the auto scale, auto load balancer.
Okay. And you have running autoscalers in your environment, so you have that experience.
Yes.
So, um, have you had your applications crash? And can you tell me about like experiences like that? Like what kind of disaster recoveries have you done yourself?
Okay, so what happens? We have the banking application, and in that application, over the month end and the quarter end, we are facing issue of slowness. So what happens here? Multiple business users are trying to log in and do the some report operation. As month end, they have the multiple reports like fund related and bank related funds reports are there that they need to generate, and they are constantly clicking on that particular report to generate. So if as part of the application, if they are hitting for the particular application so many times, then it will create a deadlock in that database, and it will going to slow the application, and all the users will facing the slowness for that particular application. So in that case, what we run, so we are creating the lock mechanism for the particular DB and as a overall on the user side. So what we done, if there are the 10 plus users are there who are accessing the particular application, then we are using the lock mechanism, that if they are updating any particular report related entry, then it will lock for the 1 minute or 2 minute, and in that that user need to update the data. If there is a failed, then lock will be released and other user able to log that one. And this one we are also increase the EC2 instance at that time, and at the parallel we are adding one more DB at parallel to maintain some cache, like users are trying to access the multiple reports simultaneously. So what we have provided additional, ask user to use the cache, and sometimes the users are using the same URL in the browser multiple times, and it will load the cache and it will hang the browser also. So we need recommendation before the month end, like you need to clear the browser cache, and whenever you log in, we have the cache button inside that application, so you need to clear and then you need to start work on. With that, it will minimize the impact. So from the past, we can say 1 year we are observing that issue, and but literally it minimize with the policy and other feature that we are providing.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with Docker? What did you do with it? Did you have any Kubernetes, other types of container swarms?
Yeah, so I work in the Docker, and but less experience in the Kubernetes. So normally we have the Docker images in the Docker Hub. So based on that requirement, we are pulling that images from like we use Linux related and Windows related images, and based on that we are creating the Docker file, and we need to work on that. But as
Mm-hmm.
part of the Kubernetes, I started little, but we don't have any hands-on in that Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Understood.
mm.
Let's talk about CI/CD a little bit. Can you tell me about your experience with Jenkins a little bit?
Yeah, so in the Jenkins, what happens? We have the Jenkins files, and we can say it's like a server and child relationship in the Jenkins. So what we need to do, if we need to build, install, or anything configuration related, the Jenkins can help, and we need to use it as a automation purpose. So what we done in the CI/CD, so we are using the GitLab CI/CD, and once we return the CI build and CI commands, where we are going to deploy that application using the CI/CD. So once suppose one code has been committed, then it will check using the CI to build particular, like we are using the MS build and some NuGet packages also. So check, it will going to check on the server if build has been succeed or not. And after that, we are checking the Jenkins. From the Jenkins, we are calling that particular build or particular branch to check if that particular build has been successful or not. If successful, then with the Jenkins, we are going to deploy that particular application to the server. So we are integration with the GitLab and Jenkins, and with that we are constantly monitoring every 1 minute, and we also monitoring the particular branch. And if there is a merge request is there, then we are checking the latest build, and that we going to deploy by triggering the Jenkins job.
Okay. Have you had any experience writing the Jenkins files yourself?
I say a minimum, but require do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you know what kind of Jenkins files were there? Like pipelines, right?
Yes, Jenkins file, we can say it's a bunch of the pipeline that has been defined in the Jenkins file, and whenever we hit that running that file, it will working as a, we can say, one by one in whatever order that is mentioned in the Jenkins file.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, do you know the difference between imperative pipeline and declarative pipeline in Jenkins?
Yeah, so we can say imperative and declarative. So mostly we are using the declarative syntax. So syntax that will be the little easy to understand. And in the Jenkins dashboard, we have the two options that whatever we need to choose. So what we done, we are written some Jenkins file and that we are imported from the Jenkins dashboard also. And from the imperative, so we can say node stages are there. And in the declarative, we can say pipeline and stage, and we can contain the multiple steps.
Okay. Um, okay. Considering it's mostly Windows environments,
Mhm.
you say that you have experience in Terraform. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Mhm. Okay, so Terraform, we can say it's like an infrastructure related automation part where we need to implement some automation using the Terraform. So Terraform will contain the configuration file and Terraform state file. So whatever configuration that we are written in the TF file, it will be when we do the Terraform init, it will create the configuration. So it will contain all the information that is related to execute that particular TF file, and it also contains the TF state that will maintain the state of the particular file. So if suppose we have the multiple, we can say one TF file is present that we are trying to initialize, then it will do the log for that particular file. And if that operation has been completed, then it will release the log. So with that, we are unable to change in runtime sequence for the particular Terraform. And we have the hierarchy of that particular applications where we are distinguishing that Terraform with a different folder structure, like variables we creating the separate TF, and for the services we are creating the separate. So likewise we are creating the hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about, again, what have you written any Terraform modules or changed Terraform scripts?
Yeah, so from the scratch I didn't read, but from whatever existing are there that we are going to already gone to modify the changes in the TF file.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me about a couple of examples that you did?
Yeah, so we have the Terraform where the TF file. So what we done recently, we have the list of variable that is defined already in the variable TF file, and we need to change. But what happens as initially we return that variable and its implementation in the single file, we are facing issue where that variable is already defined, or we can say its duplication has been happened for the particular variable. So what we know, so we created a separate files to the variable, and whatever variable defined in whole project that has been shifted to single, and with that we just inherited that particular variable where that has been required.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Can you tell me about your, again, what do you like about Ansible and, not Ansible, sorry, Terraform, and what do you dislike about Terraform?
Yeah, so I can say for the Terraform, I can say with the automation, it increased the productivity, and for the multiple infrastructure that can be easy to handle. But sometimes what happens if there are the huge directory for the particular project, then we need to rethink of how structure has been. Cause whenever we are starting from the scratch for the particular project, in that time we need to divide that particular project into the multiple parts. Like we have the modules, then variables, then definition, then implementation, services that we need to distinguish. If there is any issue in the area, then we only need to change in that particular area also. So as mentioned, we face issue related with the variables. So to overcome that one, we create a separate file for that variables, and with that we inherited wherever that has been required.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just had a question and it disappeared from my head. Great. It was something related to Terraform.
Mhm.
Have you used like TerraGrant maybe, or it's just plain Terraform?
No, no, it's just a plain Terraform.
Okay. Oh yes, that's the question. Okay, so what kind of things you were deploying with Terraform? AWS infrastructure?
Yes, yes, mostly AWS infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Hmm. And I pretty much asked most of the things that I wanted to ask. Do you have any questions for me?
No, no question. We are good.
Okay, okay. Hmm. Um, Nexus. So yeah, I see Nexus there.
Mhm.
What were you using it for, and how did you populate it?
Mhm.
Was it like mirrors of
So actually, what
NuGet
happens?
packages?
Yes, yes. Actually, what
Yeah,
happens
sorry.
in the BNY, we have the Nexus repository already present, and the framework is already ready, and we just need to use that configuration in the file. So recently, what happens? So whatever changes that we are doing, that will be automatically deployed with that implementation on that Nexus repository, and after that will be considered as a zip. It will contain all the DLL, EXE, and PDB files. But later, what happens? That we need to migrate to the Artifactory. So what we need to do here, so we need to create first CI/CD pipeline, and with that we need to migrate that Artifactory, means Nexus repository to Artifactory. So for that we
Mm-hmm.
return the pipeline, and in that what we run, we need to mention that Artifactory URL and the Nexus URL and the artifact ID and other detail that we need to mention in the configuration side. So once code has been committed, it started the CI/CD build, it will check, and then it will deploy to the Artifactory as a zip format. So likewise we have worked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Understood. Mm, I
Actually,
don't think I
mm,
have any other questions.
okay. Actually, what happens?
Okay.
DevOps contain the many tools, and we constantly need to learn. So whatever things I'm doing in the office, I'm same trying to replicate on my personal machine so that it will
Mm,
be parallel learning and earning.
mm. Okay, tell me about yeah, tell me more about your local machine adventures. Like what kind of things did you deploy on your machine? What have you experimented with? Can you tell me a little bit more
Yeah.
hands-on experience?
Yeah, so what I done, I use GitLab and GitHub repositories, and in that, whatever I started with a basic application, like we just need to deploy the CI/CD. So we write this GitLab file and check how it will going to work. So then I started to use a GitHub Actions. I also work. So with the GitHub action, we need to
Mm-hmm.
create the future branches likewise, and in that we need to maintain the future branching structure, we can say. So whenever changes has been done, we need to make some feature branch commit, and then it will deploy it. So likewise we work in the GitHub. And then also initially tried with the AWS to implement some changes like EC2 RDS whatever implementation, but later I received the huge bill, so that has been cancelled. And then started with the Ansible. So Ansible, as for the Linux, we use the Oracle Virtual Box and created the different virtual machine and try to implement like running installation software, default software using the jobs and keys. So likewise, I started and we created a separate folder for the DevOps. It will contain the each tools and whatever learning I am implementing in that and uploading in the GitLab.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's ask more variety questions. What are the tools that you're currently trying to learn, and what do you want to learn next, I guess?
Yeah, so currently I need to get in depth in the AWS. So need in future I try to get the certification for the AWS. So initial cloud practitioner and slowly need to grab and whatever tools like then I will start full depth in the Docker products and slowly inside in the Kubernetes and whatever Ansible in depth I need to learn.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't have any other questions. We had a good discussion.
Okay.
Hmm. Say again, as a last thing, do you have any questions for me?
No, no question. We are good.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, then I think we're done here.
Yeah.
Um, I can't say anything for certain because it's not part of my department. I just interview people.
Mhm.
But it's been good to talk with you. It's been interesting. So thank you for your time, and I hope I'll see you in future.
Yes, sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Good one. Bye.